Good day, my fellow YouTubers. I am Batman, and it is my distinct privilege to demonstrate, exemplify, and exhibit in its entirety the gun that the Dark Knight himself would employ in combat against the enemies of his justice if he found it within himself to stop being a morally conflicted pussy and kill people. If he had just taken the time to kill the Joker the first time around, imagine how many more people would be alive today. Now, Batman defeats his opponents by relying on stealth both to advance and cause uncertainty in his enemies, and when those enemies' uncertainty inevitably turns to fear, the Batman emerges from the shadows and engages them one at a time, and at their most weakened psychological state, overwhelms them with sheer force. And indeed, the K7 is much the same. Guerrilla warfare, people. The tactic invented by those first American revolutionaries and employed to win the war. You hit the enemy hard, you hit the enemy when it is unsuspecting, you leave bodies in your wake, and then you get the fuck out of Dodge, right? If you hadn't heard, the bird is the word. And also, the K7 SMG comes with a built-in suppressor. The hint there from IW is this is a stealth-oriented weapon, herp derp. However, what really makes this gun special is how quickly it puts people on the fucking ground. Under 15 meters, this gun has the second fastest kill time of all the SMGs. The only SMG that beats it is the Bison, which under 13 meters kills faster by a whopping 6 milliseconds. But the thing about the Bison is that the damage drop-off is so severe that by 17 meters, it's already a 5-bullet kill or about 320 milliseconds, whereas the K7, which has the second least painful damage drop-off in the SMG class, can retain a 3-bullet 130 millisecond kill. If you're having trouble following these numbers, what I'm basically saying is that under 17 meters, the K7 SMG is the most deadly fully automatic weapon in Call of Duty Ghosts, and it holds that title while fully silenced. The PP-19 Bison, statistically speaking, can kill 6 milliseconds faster, but a number that small is so inconsequential that it doesn't really make a tangible difference, because if the K7 and the Bison run into each other under 13 meters, it'll come down to who got the first shot, and immediately after 13 meters, the K7 will win the gunfight even if the Bison did get the first shot. So what this means is that if both you and your enemy are fighting under 17 meters, the K7 will win that gunfight against any other weapon in the game, excluding shotguns obviously, which come with their own limitations. Now, the drawback to this much power up close, and the main advantage other SMGs will have over the K7, is that just as the Bison loses the majority of its power after 13 meters, the K7 is going to lose all of its power after 20 meters. At 20 meters, it becomes a 4-bullet kill, which is extra problematic with SMGs because at that range you have to start burst firing, which adds significantly to the kill time, and then by 24 meters, it's already a 7-bullet kill. And the thing is, close range you can fairly easily determine the difference between 5 meters and 10 meters, but at longer ranges, it becomes much more difficult to determine the difference between 20 and 24 meters, or even 17 and 24 meters, especially on the fly in high-pressure scenarios. So, as a matter of practicality, it is best to assume that over 17 meters, the K7 is effectively useless, and I want to emphasize that because I know a lot of us Call of Duty veterans like to think we're badass enough to burst fire and pretend an SMG is an AR when the situation calls for it, but Ghosts has subtly, though radically, evolved to ensure that there are boundaries that the SMG cannot cross. You are not going to land 7 bullets on an enemy while accounting for recoil and enemy movement. To think otherwise is foolishly arrogant. So it is best to avoid those situations entirely and keep all of your gunfights under 17 meters. So with that in mind, the key to success when fighting with K7 SMG is to focus on speed and stealth. Speed so that you might close the distance between you and your enemies to under 17 meters where you will have the clear advantage, and stealth so that you might close that distance without being noticed. Otherwise, you will quite often be killed before successfully closing said distance, or at the very least assaulted from a distance at which you cannot effectively fight back, forcing you to back off with your tail between your legs. Now, what you already have working in your favor in regards to speed and stealth is the built-in suppressor and the fact that the K7 SMG has the fastest reload time of the SMGs, which I believe means it has the fastest reload time for primary weapons in Call of Duty Ghosts. Now, to maximize on these strengths, I highly recommend agility, sleight of hand, ready up. I don't think Marathon is worth the 2 perk points because you don't necessarily have to be sprinting non-stop, only when you're trying to close the distance between yourself and an enemy at a longer range, but agility will, which is lightweight from previous Call of Duties, will allow you to close that range much more quickly, statistically decreasing the chances that you are detected, or if so, the time your detector has to kill you. Sleight of hand combined with the already speedy reload will make that reload an instantaneous process, which is important because when you are up close and personal, any moment of respite you take will allow the enemy to bum rush and overwhelm overwhelm you. You want to hit a target and move on as quickly as possible, but a lot of the time, especially in games with fixed spawns like Blitz, what will happen is you will kill a guy, and while you are removing yourself from that position, you will immediately run into another enemy, or, not uncommonly, several enemies. And so, in those situations, and again, especially when you are pushing spawns, you want to be able to reload after every kill. For that to work, it's got to be instant, and that's why you should rep sleight of hand. You run ready up because the key to speed is sprinting, and ready up with the super quick SMG ADS time will allow you to sprint to the very last millisecond right up in the enemy's face and still ADS faster than they can. For stealth, you want takedown and dead silence. Dead silence is an absolute must because footsteps are the new UAV in Call of Duty Ghosts, and because you will be constantly sprinting in very close proximity to your enemy. Without dead silence, anyone who has ears will immediately know your exact location. And takedown is important because when you are killing that close up, the victim's skull will be revealing your exact location, and if you're pushing spawns, suddenly multiple enemies at a time will start closing in on your ass, and there's not much you can do in that situation. For attachments, a grip and sight is going to really maximize the ease of use, making the kill process much more efficient and drastically reducing recoil. The red dot sight is probably the most useful here, as it allows for the most visibility and peripheral vision while ADS'd, which are the most important factors in up-close situations. And using all of this, the key is to weave in and out of cover, hit flanks, and keep things close. If it's fixed spawns like Domination or Blitz, throw yourself in the middle of the enemy spawn, running from cover to cover. And if used correctly, this weapon setup causes a lot of frustration and emotional stress in your enemies, because when done properly, you'll be killing motherfuckers often in places they think they are safe and from random directions, and after that happens a few times, they'll start feeling like at any moment they're about to die, in a constant state of danger. And that's the kind of fear that makes people play badly. That's the kind of fear that wins games single-handedly, and suddenly I am become more than a man fighting crime, but a symbol of justice. Please remember to rate. This is Batman, signing out.